Okay, let's get started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me. All right, great. A couple of housekeeping things to get us started. This is a great time to turn off notifications on your phone, anything that might be distracting, so you can stay fully focused. We're going to be covering a lot, and I don't want you to miss anything. Also, I'd love if you could keep your camera turned on so I can see your smiling faces. So nice to be able to see who I'm talking to, and it just feels better to have that human connection. So this workshop's going to be interactive. I sent a link to a workbook, which you can download and write in, or you can just grab a notebook and a pen, whatever you've got. It's great. And I hope you'll stay until the end because I have a free coaching call for everyone who attends live. Great. Let's dive in. So I see we have different types of studio owners, and I work with different types of studio owners: yoga, dance, martial arts, photography, creative studio owners, Pilates. And one thing I've noticed is everything's very similar. Even though we teach very different things, the way the business runs and the way we bring in more clients is very, very similar, no matter what you're teaching. So that's what our conversation's about today. So let's start with just thinking for a minute about if this sounds familiar. It's late, the house is finally quiet, you're exhausted after a long day at your studio. You crawl into bed and you can't get your mind to stop spinning. You're running numbers in your head, wondering how you're going to fill Tuesday's class. Or maybe you've watched a student you love just slowly stop coming to class and you're just not sure why. You know your classes are great, but you're still struggling to keep them full and you're at a loss for what to do. Put a 1 in the chat if any of that sounds familiar. And if you're nodding right now, you're in the right room because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Ways to fill your classes that don't involve more time on social media or spending money on ads. Because what I believe and what I built my own studios on is that you can fill your classes without spending money on ads. And what it takes is a really solid plan and systems that you build into your studio's foundation. Solid systems that are consistent, so you're not constantly feeling that chase for every student. It's a constant flow of students in and students that stay. So for those of you I haven't met, I'll just share a little bit about me. I, I'm Cathy Fitzgerald. Good thing to share. And I spent 15 years building a dance studio in Missouri that grew to more than 900 students. And after I sold it, I built a successful photography business in Missouri. A few years later, I moved to Michigan and started over rebuilding that photography business. And even in a brand new place, I was able to grow it to 29 weddings a year, plus family sessions, engagements. So it was very successful. And then COVID hit. And right at the end of COVID, I was a partner in opening a yoga studio in Traverse City we taught children and adults yoga. And it's still going today, but for different reasons and where I wanted to go in the direction with my own life, I chose to sell out my part of the partnership. And from there, I have taken my training and certification as a life coach, along with all of my experience from years of building businesses to work with studio owners like you. And it's my mission to help every studio owner bring their expertise and their gifts and the impact they have in the world into a sustainable business that they can keep their doors open and also have the life they want to live without being constantly exhausted and overwhelmed. So, something that surprises a lot of people when I talk about my own businesses is that I built them without spending money on advertising. And I'm not saying that you should never run ads. there is a time and a place that maybe you do want it to run ads. But before you spend any money on ads, I really encourage you to try other things that might work. And I want to share with you what has worked for me and my successful businesses, as well as what continues to work with the studio owners I coach today. When I look back, there was really never just one thing that filled my classes. There wasn't one individual event or one partnership or one referral program. What actually worked was all the little things stacked up over time. Family telling another family, someone seeing us perform at a festival, a child bringing a friend to class, a former student coming back. And little by little, it added up. And it became a part of my business foundation to follow some of the guidelines of what I'm going to show you today. It was a strong program for retention and a steady flow of new clients. So, as we talk about this today, some of the things you're probably already doing. Maybe you reach out to a student who's been missing, or you already get great referrals, and that's awesome. You're already in place to build on that. What I'd really like for you to think about is where you might be able to go deeper with what's working and where it could be even more intentional, more consistent, a really solid plan, and where you could lean into it even more to take you to the next level. And as I was getting ready today, I kept thinking about all the different ways the students find us over the years. And it reminded me that almost nobody wakes up one morning and decides to join a studio. It really is a journey. And the journey starts with them learning about you. They've been maybe thinking about their child going to a dance class or joining a yoga class for themselves. They've heard it's great for their stress, for their mobility, for their strength. They might have just heard from a friend. And so, in general, they're thinking, maybe I need to put my child in class, or maybe I want to join class. So then they start thinking, well, I wonder where that could be. And they hear about your studio somewhere, whether it's from a friend, whether it's a drive-by, and they see your building, maybe they see you at an event. Somehow they discover you. They might even go online and see your website, your social media. And then they need to experience what you actually offer. They need to learn more. And they can learn that in different ways. But an actual live experience is such a great way for them to get to know you, whether that's away from the studio or within the studio environment. And once they've had that experience, they decide, do I like it here? Is this a good fit? Will my child thrive in this environment? And hopefully they'd make that decision, yes, this is the perfect place to be, and they join. And if they're really happy, they stay. And if you stay engaged with them, they stay. And if you give them an exceptional experience, something they're not even expecting, they tell other people. And that's when the magic really happens. So before we go any further, I'd like to just take a little pause and let you think about your last 10 students, the most 10 recent to join your studio. And maybe you can think of them on the top of your head where they came from. Maybe you'll need to come back to this later, but try just for a couple of moments to either write in your workbook or in a notebook where those last 10 students found you. How did they hear about you and what brought them through your door? And I'll just pause here for just give you a couple of moments and then we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. And I would really encourage you, go back through your printouts, your software, and see if you can come up with even more. Really look into that. And what I'd like for you to notice is if there are any patterns, anything that surprises you. Is there anyone that has something they'd like to share? Just type it in the chat. I'd love to hear if there's some things that came up for you during that exercise. And I love this exercise because it shows us what's actually happening instead of what we might think is happening. And if you're not sure, just go back and spend a little more time on it because your last 10 students are leaving you some clues. They're showing you what's already working in your studio, and they're usually pointing at an opportunity that's right in front of you, a place where you might put a little more intentional energy in building that part of your program. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the students who have already said yes, the students that you have right there in your studio right now. And before we put extra effort into bringing in new students, it's really important to take a pause and to look at your retention. And here's why it matters so much. Studies show it can cost 5 times as much to bring in a new student as to keep one that you already have. That's huge. And also, the students that you already have a relationship with or have heard about you or maybe have been there in the past, you have a 60% chance of upgrading them, of having them return, of having them stay, than pulling a complete stranger into your environment. So, referrals, being the go to person in the community, and having a strong retention program really are some of the best ways that you can keep your studio profitable and sustainable. It really makes a huge difference. So, before you start working too hard on bringing in more students, I really encourage you to pause and take a really good look at your retention program. And something that works really well is looking at not only your numbers, but also running maybe a biweekly report of all of your clientele and highlighting, actually take a highlighter, print it out, highlight any students that have missed more than one class recently. And especially if they're a regular who never misses class, or someone who normally takes 3 or 4 classes a week and now they're only showing up for one, or they haven't been here in a couple of weeks. And this is where you can reach out and have a great chance of salvaging a relationship and keeping a client. If you wait until they're already gone, it's often too late. But if you can reach out personally before they're gone, sometimes that's all it takes to get them back on track. So, a lot of times students don't leave because they're not happy or because anything's wrong. They just drift away. Life gets busy, schedules change, the child picks up another activity, someone misses a couple of weeks and loses momentum, an adult hits a stressful season at work, things just happen. So sometimes all it takes is that one touch point at the right moment to keep from losing them completely. And there's really good ways that you can do this. The more human, the better. So, click that off, sorry. So, automation's great, but a human touch can go so far. I recently got a text from a yoga studio and it said, "We haven't seen you in a while. We miss you. Click the link and come back." They used my name. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't bad. There was nothing wrong with it. It did remind me they existed. It reminded me I needed to get back on track with my classes. but it didn't push me to go back. And what might have is something that sounded like it came from a real person, a text, an email, a phone call, a voicemail, something that told me they were really thinking about me, not just another number on their list of absences. Maybe something like, "Hey, Kathy, are you back from your trip yet? I'd love to hear about it. There's a new class on the schedule, and I really think you'd love it. It's just the kind of classes you like." Because we all love to know that we matter. And somehow knowing that someone noticed us just feels so good. It just, that human connection makes me feel like, oh, yeah, they do miss me. I miss being there in that community. I'm going to make an effort to go back. Sometimes you reach out and you find out maybe something's going on, and it gives you the opportunity to talk to them, to maybe resolve a situation, to encourage them to get back into class if something's going on in their life. Just that human connection at the right time can make all the difference. And once they're gone, it's too late. You don't have much chance of getting them back once they've made the decision. So it's really important to run this biweekly report, to put it in your process. And before you panic, I know it just sounds like one more thing on your to-do list. And I'm not saying ditch the technology. Keep those automated messages. Yes, those are good. Those are a touch point. But adding this extra on top of it can be so helpful. Maybe you've got a team member who's very personable that could help you out. There's different ways to do it. Your system could look something like every couple of weeks, you run a quick list, you look for warning signs, a regular who never misses, someone who dropped recently or didn't come to class recently, and you just reach out. You hope to get a chat started. You just send a text message, send an email, leave a voicemail. Even if they don't answer, they will love hearing your warm voice. They really will. And see if you can get a conversation going. See if you can figure out what's going on. That's when you have the opportunity to keep these people from drifting away, because usually they won't announce that they're going to drift away. They just will cancel their membership, or they'll just stop bringing their child to dance. So it's really important that you get on top of it. And if you do this consistently every other week, that list of who you need to contact is going to get shorter and shorter because your retention is going to be stronger. You're going to have fewer people on that list to contact. So it will get easier over time. That's part of putting these systems in place so that you consistently stay on top of it. And it becomes just a foundation of your studio. Just another thing that makes all of your students feel connected, makes them feel seen. So next slide. So what I would like for you to do next is think about people who are already in your circle. So maybe you don't need to reach out to totally new students. Maybe you've got people that have been in and you thought were going to sign up, but they didn't. Maybe a former student who said, "I'll be back after I fly south for the winter," but you haven't heard from them. Old leads that you don't really know why they never connected. There's so many reasons why you might have a list of people that are not in your studio right now. And these are some great people to, to reach out to. We tend to assume if they didn't sign up, they aren't interested, or if they stopped coming, they've moved on. But a lot of the time, it's just not the truth. Sometimes the timing was wrong and that's it, and they've just kind of forgotten about it. So, what I'd love for you to do, grab your worksheet again or your notebook and make another list. And this one's going to be 5 people that might already be in your circle. 5 people you could reach out to: a former student, a former lead, a family you've been meaning to call, someone you thought for sure was going to sign up, someone who comes to mind right now and see if you can write down 5 names. And I'll be right back. All right, we're back. There it is. Okay. So as you look at that list, I'd love for you to think about who could you reach out to in the next 48 hours. Think about it like this. Think about the last time someone really noticed you and they reached out, and think about how that made you feel that they thought of you. Studios are human-centered and all about connection. And it's something we all crave, especially in this digital online world. So leaning into that human connection really is one of your superpowers. So I hope that you'll put that to good use, lean into it, and reach out to these 5 people in the next 48 hours. So next up, we're going to talk about, let me switch. I'm not real quick at switching back and forth. So the next thing we're going to talk about is letting people experience what you do and also being the go-to studio in your community. So one of the biggest lessons I learned is that people buy on emotion. We like to think we decide things logically, but if you think about the last few things you bought, I bet you've got some purchases there that were emotional. Maybe not logical at all. A parent that watches their child light up in a class, an adult that walks out of yoga feeling better than when they walked in, someone that feels welcomed in your studio, like it's just a great place they want to be. They feel like they belong. That's what people remember. And that's what will have them ready to join your studio, often before they even consider the pricing. And it's hard to build that with a flyer or a social media post or an ad. An actual live experience is the best way to build that emotion. So, for my dance studio, we spent a lot of time out in the community. We performed at festivals, parades, community events, and that was all great. But the best return on our time always happened when we gave people an experience. So if we had a booth at a festival, we'd bring a karaoke machine, a few fun props, and we'd go out in the grassy area, make a big circle, invite everybody in, make it high energy, lots of fun, upbeat music. Parents can join in with the kids, and we do a little 15-minute class for preschoolers. Older brothers and sisters joined in. It was just fun. It was just a 15-minute fun movement activity. And it gave them a little taste of what we were teaching in our preschool classes. That alone grew my preschool program and helped me reach 900 students. Because when those children loved that, when the parents saw how excited they were, when they talked about it for weeks, they signed them up. a lot signed up right then and there. You have to be ready because you will get people registering right there on the spot. And because it was our preschool program with a strong retention program and strong things in place to keep those students, they stayed until they graduated high school. So it just was a natural progression that gave our studio really solid foundation. And then later, building my photography business, I did something very similar. I would do little mini sessions so people could not only see my work when they got their photos back, but they also got to experience what it was like to work with me. Because a lot of people do not like being in front of a camera, they're just not comfortable. And I have a way of really making them feel good and getting good, natural looking photos. And they loved it. And once they felt that, they'd be like, oh, this isn't so bad. And then they might hire me for their wedding or for a family photo session. So that worked. And then whenever I was working with building a yoga studio, very similar. We would have kids yoga classes or we'd have adult yoga classes. And for adults, you can do things like going into a corporate environment, going into a business, moving things around, making a space, letting people join in, yoga in the park, festivals, anywhere that you can get out in the public where people can see you and experience what you offer. You're going to tap into those emotions. And it is one of the best marketing tools you can find. So it does take some time and energy, but eventually you'll know which events work best for you. And then maybe you only do a select few a year. And you can also do events inside your own studio. You've got to bring those people in, but giving some free trials, open houses, special events, bringing a buddy, all of those things make a difference, and giving people a chance to experience what you offer without making a commitment. So that's just a part of the journey. They hear about you, they experience you. So we're taking them through this journey. What's the next step? The next step. So by the time they walk through your doors, a lot of them are no longer strangers. They've heard about you in the community, they've experienced a class, they've seen you out and about. And that matters more than you realize because people are far more likely to choose a place they've heard of than a place they know nothing about. So, there's a rule of seven. It's not really a magic number, but it's just the idea that you have to keep showing up. So when someone is finally ready to join a yoga studio or a dance studio, martial arts, Pilates, whatever it is that you offer, your studio is the first one that comes to their mind. You're the go-to. This is where you go. If this is what you want in our community, this is the place to be. And it goes beyond events. Something that was really a low dollar item and low time was I discovered one year that a mother of a student asked me to sponsor her younger son's soccer team by putting my logo on their shirts and paying for their shirts. So it was really inexpensive. And then I had the whole back of their shirt, whatever I wanted to put there, my logo, my name, phone number, anything I wanted to put on there. It made her so happy that I would put the money into her son, who wasn't even a member of the studio. His big sister danced there. So it was great for my retention as far as making my current client feel really good, like she mattered. It was amazing for getting the word out there in a way that people trusted because they would see this at every game. The moms we get to talk about, have you heard of this studio? Yeah, that's where my daughter goes. It's amazing. And that's gold. That just puts you right there as the place to be because they trust their friends. They trust what they hear. So, those collaborations make all the difference. Those kids even wore those shirts everywhere they went, not just the games. So it was just a walking billboard for years. And even if you don't have a dance studio, there's adult softball leagues, all kinds of teams that you could participate in, do something like that. There's all kinds of businesses that you could share things with. A local photography studio, the coffee shop next to your studio. Meet with them, see what you can do, work out some kind of collaboration, certificates, share milestones. So, what I'd like to do now is pull those workbooks back out. And I'm going to have you think of some ways that people could experience what you do before they enroll. So we're just going to take another little pause and I'm going to have you write down 3 ways people could experience your studio before they ever even make a decision. We got one more. We missed some slides there. Here we go. All right. And I want you to think of this on not online. These would be real life situations where they could get a true live experience of your studio. And I'll be right back. Okay, awesome. And before you put that workbook away, whoops, wrong page. Okay. Before you put that workbook away, I want you to think also about your town for a minute. Where are people gathering? Not just online, but in real life. Where do they actually spend their time? So maybe it's in schools, sporting events, the library, community events, local shops, a homeschool group, the lunch spot where everyone seems to know everyone. There's just so many options. And just take a minute and write those down as well. And then as you look at these lists, think about how many of these places know who you are. How many have actually experienced what you do? And think about how you can build these relationships. Maybe you meet with the owner of the pizza place that the kids all like to go to, and you spend 10 minutes to chat about what you could do to promote each other. And think about how well your businesses tie in together and present that to them. I really think we could benefit from having a relationship because we serve the same clients in different ways. So that's going to give you a whole nother perspective of places that you might be getting out there so that you can be discovered and so that people can experience you. And then once you have those students, once you've got a really good retention program, you've got a steady stream of people coming in, those happy students that get an exceptional experience, they're your best for advertising. You can turn them into ambassadors, and when you create an experience that goes above and beyond what they expect, they're going to talk about it. You don't have to ask them to talk about it. They just can't help it. They're going to talk about it. So let me go to this next slide here. So some of that best marketing happens when you're not even marketing. People talk about how you made them feel. And something I learned over the years is that if someone has an experience that just goes above and beyond, they talk about it conversation. And I had one like that this past weekend. I was talking to a woman at a luncheon, and she happened to mention, oh, my granddaughter just had her dance recital. And she was just really excited because her granddaughter had her dance recital. And she was so impressed with the studio. And what was interesting was that it wasn't that the dancers were amazing. And I'm very familiar with the studio. Their dancers are amazing. What she was impressed by is that it's this really big studio. And after the whole show was over, we're out in the lobby and the two owners came out and they called my granddaughter by name. There's all these kids and all these students, and they knew her name. And that's what mattered to her. That was just, she just was blown away by that. So, there's a Maya Angelou, and there's a quote that's often credited to Maya Angelou, and it's people may not remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that feeling is the whole thing. So for yoga students, your studio might be their third place, the spot after home and work, they come to your studio. It's their space. They love it. It's their community. It's their quiet time. It's their time for themselves. For your dance students, they often called my studio their second home. You know, they have school, they have home, but they spent so many hours at the dance studio, and some of them didn't feel like they belonged in school, but they belonged in the community at the dance studio. So, for an adult, it might be that 1 hour they get to exhale the whole entire week, and they just can't wait to be there. So, just when people feel that, they stay longer, they keep coming back. And when they stay and they feel this exceptional experience and they feel what it gives them and their child, they can't help but tell their friends about it. You know, think about the last time you told a friend about a restaurant. Nobody paid you. You weren't in some affiliate program. You just loved it and you wanted to share. And it's the same thing that happens in our studios. Sometimes I think we make referrals more complicated than they need to be, but most of them just come from a relationship, from someone saying, you should check out this place. I think you'd love it. And, sure, you can have a set referral program. I think those are wonderful. But your students can't wait to talk about it. So, some other ways we made that easy for our students is in our dance studio, we had Bring a Friend Week during Halloween with costumes and themed dances. And most years, it filled the remaining spots for the season. That was really the only big drive we needed to do to fill our classes. And for adults, it might look like inviting a yoga buddy, someone to hold them accountable, a fun friend to come with them to class. So, just look for those moments that can turn things into being very memorable, the thing that people bring up later. And that's where they start talking about you. So, we're going to pause again, have a couple of more questions for you to fill out. Thinking about in the next 6 months, something that you could do for people to introduce one of their friends to your studio, an event, a challenge, something that would work in your space. And also think about one thing that you do now really well that you could make so exceptional, people can't wait to talk about it. You know, obviously they know the children's names in that dance studio, but it was exceptional that they used their names at the big recital event. It might be you notice someone's not there. The exceptional part is you reach out personally. So think about what you can do that's going to surprise people, that goes above and beyond what might be expected, or the good things that you're already doing. How could you make it even better? And I will be right back. Okay. So we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot of ground. And it's, I'm sure things you've heard of before, but I just encourage you to take it to a new level. It's going to make a big difference. I think you'll be really surprised. And it takes a while to build it. You've got to build those systems, have them in place, have it consistently happening. So let's just pause for a minute, take a big breath in, and let it go. Let's do that two more times. Big breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more. Big breath in and let it go. Shake it all out. Whew. Okay, a lot of focus for the last hour. All right. So I would like for you to just fill in one more sheet. We're almost there. You're doing great on that homework. I would like for you to take a few moments and come up with four things that you could put into place this week. Because if you think about all the things we've talked about, it can feel a little overwhelming. So I always give action plans and things that are doable because every little step builds. And feeling like you've got to do it all, often we do nothing. But if you think, oh, I can contact one person this week. What's one relationship I could work on building in the next month? What's one opportunity I could have to create an experience in this quarter? And what part of the experience that's happening in my studio could I already start to make exceptional? So I promise this is the last one you're And then we'll just wrap it up. So take a couple of minutes and think about these four questions. Okay. So everything we talked about today is the kind of thing that works when the pieces come together. Remember, like I said in the start, the real shift happens when these habits stop being something you do whenever you remember to, or when you're frantic because you need to fill a class. It's something that you build as a foundation that's just constantly working in the background. Your retention, a constant flow of incoming students, reaching out to people who've drifted, reconnecting with your circle, creating experiences of how your studio runs. When these are working continuously in the background, it never feels like a huge project. It's just something that you have in your system and you follow, and it builds over time. And things begin to settle in. Your retention increases, the flow of new students gets more steady. You start to breathe easier without the constant stress of chasing more students. One of my clients recently, Kelly, runs a yoga studio. And 4 months after we started implementing these ideas, she had a huge increase in memberships. And she also started waitlisting some of her classes. And it was just a milestone she never expected to hit quite that soon. So there's evidence that this works. It really does. And before I wrap up, I really just want to take a moment and say thank you to each of you for what you do. The gifts you give your students, your community, they make an impact that ripples out in waves. A child who finds confidence, an adult who finally gets an hour to breathe. This all ripples out into families, into the community, and it's so needed in our world right now. And it's exactly why I want your studio to be sustainable. Because if you burn out or if you can't keep the doors open, this gift stops giving. It's not there anymore. So my mission is to help studio owners build a sustainable studio that can keep sharing these much needed gifts and also give the owners the life they want to live. Because you shouldn't have to sacrifice your own life in order to share these gifts with others. And the way I do this is through a system that brings focus and clarity, and then I customize it to the individual needs of each studio. And I call my system the Thriving Studio System. And it has 5 pillars. So we start with a reset. We get clear on your values, your mission, what's working, what's not, where your biggest challenges and opportunities are. And we revisit your values, vision, and mission so that everything moving forward stays in alignment with what you want for your studio, what you want the ultimate place to be, the one that you dreamed of when you started it, the one you imagined. And then we move into systemize. And this is building systems for consistency where you have a clear plan so you can delegate. And it can be anything from a written sheet that tells the steps, every step to open the studio, every step to close it down at night. So everything always happens the way it's supposed to, no matter who's doing the process. It can also be systems for following up on these leads, for reaching out to former students, asking for reviews, the touch points with current students, where you input these touch points for your exceptional service. And it gives you what you need to delegate to others on your team as you grow. So you don't have to do it all yourself. You have a very clear plan and it's consistent and it builds and it's just a part of the foundation of your studio. Then the next pillar we go to is attract. And this is where we help more people discover you, building that visibility, creating experiences, partnerships, referrals. Also refining your website and social media so it gives the same vibe as your studio when people walk into your space. And then we go into lead. And leadership's where you start being able to have a little more of your own time back to do what you want to do, to be the visionary, to have more time off, to take a trip, to take a weekend, whatever it is you need. So we work on the hiring and building the perfect team for your studio and then training them and having this work all the way through. And along with this comes some mindset work, which is where my life coaching comes in because as you let things go, it takes a little mindset. It takes a little of, I don't have to do this myself and someone else can do it. And that's a hard, scary step for a lot of us who are studio owners. And then finally, we get to thrive. You have the profitable studio, it's sustainable, you're thriving, and you're living the life you want to live while your business thrives and continues to run. So there you have it. And as thank you for today, each of you who attended live are getting a free 30-minute coaching call with me. I'll be following up with an email for details on how you can do that. And it's not a sales call. It's really just coaching. You bring one thing, the challenge, question, an idea of something that you want some help with, and we'll spend 30 minutes helping you get some clarity. Sometimes a conversation with someone outside your business can just help you look at something differently and think of your next best step. So, in closing, if you have one thing today, I hope it's that you've learned that filling your classes isn't about the perfect marketing trick. It really comes down to relationships more than anything. Relationships within your studio, relationships in your community, relationships with other businesses in your community. And it's about building a studio that people discover, that they experience, that they choose, that they stay connected to, and that they tell their friends about. And it's relationships at every step. And when you build them into your foundation as systems instead of something you scramble to do when a class looks empty, they keep working continuously. You become the go-to place in your community, the studio people name without even thinking. And when those pieces work together, your enrollment gets steadier, less stressful, a lot more sustainable. So I'd love to hear your takeaway from today. You can drop it in the chat, send me a message, respond to the follow-up email with the recording. And I just thank you so much for being here. And go out and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.